Welcome to WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at this hour's headlines. Very severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy has begun landfall on the Gujarat coast in western India. High alert in place amid fierce winds and violent sea waves in the area. According to reports, India's defense ministry has approved the procurement of 31 U.S.-made armed MQ-9B Sea Guardian drones worth $3 billion. The U.S. and South Korea hold massive joint live-fire drills, the fifth and last round of the month-long exercise, and the biggest since their inaugural training in 1977. Pyongyang condemns the exercise as a severe provocation. Japan claims 2 ballistic missiles fired by North Korea landed in its exclusive economic zone. South Korea had said Pyongyang had fired a ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan. The Russian Foreign Ministry says that the country's nuclear deterrence policy is purely defensive as Moscow starts deploying some of its tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus. The last 10 days have been a soap opera in the sport of golf, but it's time now for a real blockbuster that comes straight from Hollywood. The third major of the year begins in Los Angeles today. "30 years ago, Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in return for security assistance. Now, the war-torn country wants ironclad protection from its allies as it enters a pivotal stage in its war with Russia. But since Russia started its invasion of Ukraine, the Biden administration is reportedly considering proposing an Israel model for Ukraine and NATO. It is a security model that Western leaders, including the U.S. president, have compared with what Israel has now. A deal that would be limited commitment and not include a collective defense guarantee. And according to reports, the White House would pledge to continue providing more military aid to Ukraine, regardless of the outcome of its ongoing counteroffensive. The deal will likely be for a shorter period than the commitment to Israel, which typically runs in 10-year intervals. According to the Polish President Duda, an Israeli-style security agreement for Ukraine would give priority to arms transfers and advanced technology. Further, this will push forward Kyiv's process of becoming a future member of NATO, but will stop short of actually making NATO a party to any conflict with Russia. As for a while, Ukraine has been trying to become a member of the NATO military alliance, but its request has been denied in 2008. With opponents to Kyiv's membership citing potential effect on Europe's relationship with Russia as a major issue. It is still not clear what weapons or technology might be transferred to Ukraine under this agreement, but several of Kyiv's allies have already armed the country. For instance, Poland has already supplied Ukraine with Soviet MiG-29 aircrafts. The U.S. has said that it will train Ukrainian pilots to fly F-16 jets, an essential step before the jets are actually supplied to Kyiv. Moreover, Ukraine's other allies have provided the country with tanks, high-end American and German-made air defense systems as well. And with the NATO membership for Kyiv possibly years away, a set of binding security agreements would be a way of helping the Ukrainian military immediately as Kyiv carries out its counteroffensive to push Russia out of its territory. It has claimed after the storming of the country last year. Okay, for more on this, we are being joined by Professor David Dunn from Birmingham, England. He is a professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us on WION, and great to have you. So the United States is keen, along with its allies, but Joe Biden specifically, to not be a party of this war. And apparently, while there are NATO member states that want to see Ukraine a part of the alliance, the United States and some other countries, notably Germany, are against it. Do you think that this is the pathway forward to helping Ukraine, or does Russia not care?
I think the idea of an Israeli model for Ukraine in the short term is one that serves a number of purposes. It signals to the Russians the long-term commitment of America and the West to the defense of Ukraine. Just now, Russia is trying to outweight NATO. Secondly, it allows the NATO allies who are closest to Ukraine, who want a much stronger commitment from NATO to Ukraine, to have something tangible at the summit next month. And thirdly, it allows actually America to make a long-term commitment to try and bind any future Republican administration to the defense of Ukraine. So that's why they've come up with this idea of the Israeli model. The prospect of NATO membership immediately isn't viable, because to give NATO membership now would be effectively to declare war on Russia. Similarly, if they say we'll give you NATO membership as soon as the fighting stops, that gives Russia an incentive to keep fighting to avoid Ukraine joining NATO.
And the United States would ultimately have to get Congress's approval. Do you think that it will, first of all, even go that far? And how will the United States and public opinion react to something like this? After all, we're really entering the height of election campaigning.
Yes, again, by phrasing it as the Israeli model, it's making it sound like what America does already to a key ally, Israel. The support for Ukraine within Congress is actually very strong and bipartisan. Despite the more populist presidential candidates in Congress, Republicans are supportive of this. And if they could bind the United States to a long-term agreement, if they could avoid having to discuss this at every occasion when the new package is put forward, and actually agree it long-term as a long-term commitment, it would take some of the politics out of that domestically. As far as public opinion are concerned, there is still large majorities in support of America's transfer of aid, military and humanitarian and advanced technology to Ukraine. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem in the short term.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us on WION. We'll be watching this development very closely, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
My pleasure.
Who blew up the Nord Stream pipelines? This is the biggest mystery of the Russia-Ukraine war, and it remains unanswered. Russia now intends to press the United Nations Security Council once again for an international investigation into explosions on the Nord Stream gas pipelines. Unexplained explosions ruptured both Nord Stream 1 and the newly built Nord Stream 2 pipelines, which carry gas from Russia to Germany under the Baltic Sea. Russia has repeatedly said the West was behind the blasts, but the West and Ukraine have denied involvement.
Because we could absolutely feel that, first and foremost, the United States and the UK wanted to pretend that this wasn't a topic for discussion. I don't need to remind you that we initiated the UN Security Council meeting by ourselves on February 21st on this issue.
According to Russia, 3 Western permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, the United States, Britain, and France, had previously blocked Moscow's efforts to secure a transparent investigation of what happened to the pipelines.
We have restricted chances to investigate because everything took place under the jurisdiction of countries that for some reason, and we know the reason, didn't let join the investigation. We hope and expect that those in the West who have taken it upon themselves to investigate, and guaranteed there will be an investigation, will comment on all facts appearing in media and will inform the international community on a regular basis about the discoveries, what happens with the investigation, and which conclusions they have made.
In recent months, reports have emerged that the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency knew of a Ukrainian plot to attack the pipelines. According to the report, the Biden administration received an intelligence input from the CIA that Ukraine had a plan for an attack on the Nord Stream pipelines. Washington has played down expectations of any breakthrough from the first trip by U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to China. It's the first one in 5 years. Anthony Blinken is due in Beijing on Sunday and had a tense call with China's foreign ministry yesterday. Xin Gang urged the United States to stop meddling in its affairs and harming its security. The relations between the two world's largest economies have tanked in recent years. The multiple issues of friction include Taiwan, trade, and human rights. One alarming aspect of the sour taste and ties has been Beijing's reluctance to have an open military-to-military dialogue with Washington despite repeated U.S. attempts. U.S. officials said Blinken would push to establish open communication channels to ensure competition with the Chinese does not spiral into conflict and out of control. Daniel Crittenbrink, the U.S. State Department's top diplomat for East Asia, played down chances of a breakthrough. He said, and this is a quote, "We're not going to Beijing with the intent of having some sort of breakthrough or transformation." Joe Biden and Xi met in Bali in November. The presidents agreed to try to prevent tension from soaring out of control, including by sending Blinken to Beijing. Blinken's previous planned visit was abruptly canceled in February. Back then, a Chinese balloon which Beijing denies was a government spy vessel spent a week flying over the U.S. and Canada before being shot down. The two sides have more recently looked again to keep tensions in check. Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, and top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi held an extensive closed-door meeting in Vienna last month. Biden has sought limited areas for cooperation with China, such as climate change. The U.S. president's approach differs from the more fully adversarial position adopted at the end of the administration of former President Donald Trump. Last week, the White House accused China of operating an intelligence unit in Cuba for years. White House added that China upgraded the intelligence unit in 2019 in an effort to enhance its presence on the Caribbean island. A base in Cuba would be viewed in Washington as a direct challenge to the United States of America. Remember, Cuba lies around 150 kilometers off Florida's southern tip. Asked about the base at a regular press briefing, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said that he was unaware of the situation. Cuba has also dismissed the claims and stressed that it rejects all foreign military presence in Latin America, including the bases maintained in the region by the United States. Well, there's at least temporary relief for hundreds of Indian students facing deportation from Canada. After the raised protests, the process to deport them has been put on hold, at least for now. Reports say Canadian authorities have decided not to take immediate action. The students who had reached the country from India with fake university admission letters say that they were hoodwinked into an immigration scam. Canadian Immigration Minister Sean Fraser announced that a task force has been formed to look into each case and help the victims of the fraud. Take a listen.
We want justice. We want justice.
International students who are genuine applicants that came to Canada to study and were victimized by fraudsters will be given permission to remain in Canada. Those who were complicit in a fraudulent scheme will be held accountable for their actions and will bear the full consequences of Canadian law for their illicit behavior in this particular instance. We need to do what we can to protect the ability of those innocent people to remain in Canada, and with the process that I've laid out for you today, we'll be able to do just that.
Close to 700 Indian students from Punjab state had staged protests in the Greater Toronto area. They had come to Canada between 2017 and 2020 and got notices saying the offer letters they claimed to have received from Canadian institutions were fake. The students claimed they were duped of some $40,000 by agents in Punjab state. The Canadian government had started preparations to deport the students back to India, with deportation letters issued to nearly 700 students. Indian External Affairs Minister S.J. Shankar had said that the Indian government had taken up the matter with Canadian authorities. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that the authorities are focusing on identifying the culprits and not victimizing the victims. Whether you're from Luxembourg or Zimbabwe, owning a house may be the ultimate dream. Even here in the United States, that ownership pride is probably higher in China than anywhere else in the world. Then you would assume that real estate is an evergreen sector, especially in the land of the Great Wall. But that's not the case. A real estate crisis is simmering in China, and it could potentially put the whole world into a soup. Take a look at our next report to find out more.
China's real estate sector finds itself on shaky ground. Economists are dishing out a prediction of an L-shaped recovery for the property market. That means real estate prices could drop steeply, followed by a recovery period that could last for years. While investors are worried about burning their fingers, the plot is much larger. Real estate holds the key to China's economic prosperity. 18 to 29% of China's economy relies on the real estate sector, directly or indirectly, for its growth. But the issue spreads beyond the boundaries of the Dragon's Den. China's real estate soup could leave a bitter aftertaste for markets around the world. That's because the Chinese property market spurs demand for commodities and other raw materials which keep global supply chains in check. Real estate companies in China are also heavily leveraged, which means they have high debt obligations to lenders across the world. And a default on those debts could have a domino effect on banks that have doubled down their bets on China in the last few decades. For now, the Chinese government has introduced a series of stimulus packages. But Wall Street believes that China is just building a great wall of doubt that will shake the foundations of the financial system as we know it. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Do you remember Professor Sprout from the Harry Potter franchise, the actor who played the head of the herbology department at Hogwarts School, has done the unthinkable. Marianne Margolyes made her British Vogue cover debut at the age of 82. The award-winning actor, known for her foul mouth and lovable eccentricity, is one of the many greatest of all time British actors. 82-year-old's cover reads Pride and Joy, where she is shrouded in blue satin, peeking through a chic mesh headpiece. The actor appeared in Vogue's Pride Month special edition. In one of the photos, the actor also posed topless for the magazine. A queer Marianne Margolyes talked to the magazine about her identity and her role in the famous franchise. She said, and this is a quote, "I think gay people are very lucky because we are not conventional. It gives us an edge, and I like being gay. I wouldn't want to be straight for anything." That's the end of the quote. Unknown for her iconic TV and film roles and candor in interviews, Margolyes came out as a lesbian in 1966 when homosexuality was illegal. She also lived through the HIV crisis of the 1980s, during which she lost many of her friends. Golf's third major gets underway later today in the backdrop of the shock truce deal signed by the PGA Tour and the Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund last week. A state of confusion over the terms of the deal continues to exist, and it's also a journey into the unknown for the 156 players in the field. The ultra-private Los Angeles Country Club in Beverly Hills has not hosted a professional tournament in 80 years. Golfers aren't sure what to expect, and the U.S. Open courses in the past have been difficult to score on. The storylines are immense, irrespective of the chatter that has dominated the build-up to the event. Tiger Woods isn't playing as he continues to recuperate from ankle surgery. Phil Mickelson has famously never won U.S. Open and has 6 finishes of second or tied for second. And the LIV Golf man was spotted sharing short game tips with world number 2 and former champion Jon Rahm. Here are some of the marquee pairings to look out for. Colin Morikawa and world number 1 Scottie Scheffler played on this course as amateurs in 2017, and joining them in All-American pairing is Max Homa, who has 2 wins for the season. Masters champion Rahm is in elite company alongside Olympic champion Xander Schauffele and the red-hot Norwegian Victor Hovland, who has led each of the last 3 majors at some stage. Defending champion Matthew Fitzpatrick has also won the season, and he tees off alongside British Open champion Cameron Smith and Sam Bennett, winner of the 2022 U.S. Amateur Championships. The blockbuster pairing of the opening 2 rounds features 3 major winners. Rory McIlroy hasn't won a major since 2014. Brooks Koepka has regained his major mentally and is going for a 6th this weekend, while Hideki Matsuyama has been struggling with a neck injury for a while. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching WION Live Broadcast from New York City. See you soon. Goodbye.